It's already recording. I've already
Yeah.
started.
Are you done like clearing your throat and like making whatever the nasty noises that you're making are?
Yes.
Thank you. All our listeners are thanking you right now for the throat clearing. Hey, you should take responsibility for that, Stu, because that's what we're talking about today.
Okay.
Responsibility. Hey, we had started a conversation yesterday, serious conversation, and it was talking about how we can sometimes feel guilty, uh, and my challenge to that is we feel guilty for things that we shouldn't feel guilty for, and we take responsibility for things that we should not take responsibility for. And as the conversation progressed, I had dealt with something a couple years back that totally changed how I looked at and felt about some family situations, and you were kind of in the midst of it. And
Yeah.
so I was just, offering you my perspective, because it was something that came to a head for me a couple years ago. And it's super rich conversation because there's so many different ways we went with it. But what we specifically were talking about is we both come from divorced families, and again, for our family, if you're listening to this podcast, it has nothing to do with with our family or even divorce. I mean, this was decades and decades. For me, it was 40 years ago, right? Like
Yeah.
this
Same.
this is something that happened forever ago, and I have benefited greatly by the additional things that like my dad Ben being put in my life. Like that would never happen without the impacts of divorce. I'm not suggesting that people divorce for the future benefits of that either, but the point is, we had gotten it, and it usually happens for people when they have kids. And I had gotten into a place in my life where there were certain potential comments, or there were emotions being felt by my dad and then by my mom about like holidays, for example. And I was going down a path of feeling responsible and feeling certain ways about, well, I need to make this quote unquote fair, and what does that look like? And I'm not a huge, I don't love planning events. And so it was kind of falling on me to, well, if we do this with them here and I finally was like, I'm done with this. Like, I'm not, this is a stress and an impact that I don't care to carry. And ultimately I had a conversation with both my parents, and I said, hey, look, and it was a realization for me that was very freeing. And I talked to them, and it wasn't contentious. It wasn't anything. I said, but here's the deal, guys. Like, this whole situation is a result of decisions you guys made years ago.
Yeah.
I actually have no responsibility for this. And
Yeah.
and for me, realizing that and then saying it and having a conversation completely freed me of any obligation or responsibility or guilt. And it was beautiful, right? And again, I do have obligations to my family, to my parents, to love them, honor them, respect them, but I have no obligations to make sure they're comfortable with each other, or you know any of those things. So the way I approached it was, and for us it was different than you now, because we weren't all in the same location.
Yeah.
And so I was like, hey, everybody's invited. We're doing Christmas here. You guys are invited. You guys need to figure out if you can get along or not. Not really my concern. I don't really care. It's about the kids. It's not about you. It's not about anybody else. It's not about me. This is centered around, um, our faith and church and the meaning of the day, Christmas specifically, but also about the kids having fun and all the fun stuff for Christmas. The drama can, I'm not participating anymore. And not that they were dramatic or anything with each other, but I just wasn't going to participate at all. And it was extremely important conversation, but it also, from another perspective, made me realize, hey, when you're making huge decisions like divorce, for me, right? And thank God this is not something I've had to deal with, but for those out there going through tough times and having to consider these things, I think it also is equally important that you go into it with your eyes wide open, recognizing that the immediate circumstances, whatever the decision are, is going to have long lasting impact. And
Yeah.
so if we're us at our age now, and if we're going through issues and say divorce is on the table, um, it would have to be a consideration that my kids are going to have kids one day. And there will be impacts to the decisions I make today to that, not only to their lives up until that point, but it's very far reaching. And you have to have your eyes open and make wise decisions in everything, finances, family, all these things. But I don't think we do that all the time. I don't think people going through a divorce necessarily think, because it's hard and it's emotional and you're in the moment, okay, this is going to impact as a granddad or as a grandma, whatever, this is going to have impacts far into the future. And how am I going to deal with that? And it's an important conversation. So a lot there, but it was very liberating for me years ago. And then now it also is a guiding light, right? Okay, how do I want my marriage to look, my relationships, my children, and all really important questions.
Yeah. Oh man, it was a really good conversation for me too, because I mean, the conversation that you and I had started with kind of an issue that I was going through with my parents, right? And now the grandparents of my two kids. Just recently, my mom moved from Texas to Colorado, and they might listen to this conversation on our podcast, but I've already had this conversation with them, so we're all good, right? But I, Stu, felt some sort of responsibility towards making decisions to like split time, because that's what I had been doing for 40 years, right? This holiday I'd go to my mom's house. This holiday I'd go to my dad's house. This holiday they'd come here. One would come here, and now they're both in Colorado. And so like my decision was, all right, what do we do for Christmas? What do we do for Christmas Eve and Christmas morning? And at first I was like, well, we'll just split time, right? Because that's what I've always done. But then you and I had that conversation, and it was eye-opening for me, right? It was like, no, like it's not my responsibility is to my children, right? And they want to see their grandparents, and they want to see all of their grandparents. They want to see all of their family. So we're not splitting time anymore. We're gonna do it all together. And if whoever wants to come. Whoever has an issue with that, I still love you, but we're gonna
Well, and
do.
it's their issue, right? It's
There,
also just verbalizing. If
right?
somebody has an issue with that, that's your issue and your decision. It's not my issue,
Yeah,
and it's not my decision. My responsibility for this holiday gathering has now been completed. It's done. I invited you all,
yeah,
and now it's on all of us are adults, right? And now it's on us to take and to own the decision.
yeah, yeah. So we're not trying to poo poo on any issues with marriages and divorces, and if that happened, it happened for a reason, right? But if there's challenges in your life that you're going through, and divorce is on the table, we just throw out like think about this, like 40 years when you're a grandpa or a grandma, and your kids have kids, like what does that look like, right? And for those that have already been divorced, think about that too. Like, um, maybe it's time to, become friends again with your divorcee and make it all good and mend that relationship, because there are impacts to that in a major way. So I don't know, just a really good conversation that you and I had, and we just felt that it was probably a good conversation that others could have or should have. So we just wanted to get out there.
Yeah, and I don't want to lose the point. This isn't about divorce.
True
This
statement.
conversation wasn't about divorce. This wasn't about guilt. It's not. What it's really about is responsibility and ownership.
Mm,
And I think even in your business, when you identify what your responsibility is in your business and what it's not, then that makes you more efficient. You can delegate more effectively. You can empower. You can build people up. And in the same way, effectively empowering your others in your family by saying, hey, this is what I'm responsible for. This is what I'm not. This is what you're responsible for. And in the context of a hard conversation, divorce, um, you know, that sometimes the importance of the true root of the conversation could be lost. But again, we should be talking about divorce in our
Mm.
families, right? If our families, if we come from divorced families, like that's fine. I mean, it is what it is, and we should not hide from any topic because it's our responsibility as a family to grow and thrive and to have hard conversations, to be able to discuss things that may elicit emotion to help us grow together. You and I had this conversation. What you and your family do and how that impacts our business is not my responsibility to you is within our business and our friendship and all that, right? So and it's a very empowering thing to be like, hey, like this is where I am, this is where you are, this is what I'm responsible for, this is what you're responsible for. Like let's thrive in those areas and make each other better. And dude, I think it's the power of responsibility and ownership cannot be cannot be overstated. It's life-giving. So Merry Christmas, my friend.
Yeah, me
Merry
too.
Christmas.
That ain't dumb.
That ain't dumb, dude. That ain't that's real that ain't real dumb. What?
Huh?
Yeah, I don't know. That was dumb.
So don't be dumb. Be deep. Take responsibility and get after it.
Giddy up. Giddy up. Well, all right. Giddy up.
See ya.
See ya.